Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 15th meeting of the Richmond Select Board. I hope you all remember to file your taxes, as today is the deadline.
Yep. I've been doing it since last night or yesterday.
Before we begin, would anybody care to make a public comment? Mary?
Hi there, thank you, Mary Hole. I'll be brief, as I so seldom am. I noticed ARPA is on the agenda tonight. Are we still convening as a committee? I would hope that we still are available rather than dissolve, because it looks like money's being transferred and we might not have a mission or a purpose, but I don't think we should dissolve until it's at its conclusion. And second, I sent David and Josh and CCRPC meeting requirements. Are we ever going to get back to having public meetings? I'm quite sick and tired of having meetings that are so damned important on some stupid screen so that they can't see how happy I am with all the meeting information. What kind of pull do we have? I'm tired of it. I am my last nerve.
I thought you replied to that.
I can see how happy you are, Mary.
Well, thank you.
I thought you did.
How do you really feel?
Was that was?
Just a minute. Let me show you. I got a tattoo on.
I think that was specifically with the public feedback on the Cochran Road study. Is that the one that you were looking at?
Well, the regional
was-
plan where it was just a Zoom meeting and I'm not set up for Zoom. I won't be, and I don't care to be, but there was no phone call in, which really
Right,
ticked
that
me
was
off.
the Cochran Road. I think it was the Cochran Road.
Yeah.
study.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but when it concerns the
road.
possibility of taking my land, oh, I want to be there in person.
Okay.
So I need to find out when that's going to be. And I'm quite tired of all the meetings that are only available on Zoom. No, time's up. Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. Anybody else?
All right.
Denise, come on up.
Denise Bonder, is it possible to move item R up after H, since they both relate, or to relate to why we're here?
It should be
That
pretty.
seems reasonable.
Should be a pretty quick item.
You don't really want to be here, you just want that?
Both at the end.
No, both of the.
That's
After H.
So would anybody have any objection to moving R, which is update on the conservation easement for Browns Court, up in the agenda? So it follows H, which is update regarding not receiving the VOREC grant for a playground in consideration of designing, of designating $100,000 in ARPA funds designated as a match for this grant for use toward a playground.
I have no objection, but Kara has her hand up, so.
Okay, so we'll put this on the back burner and go to Kara. Kara?
Mine wasn't relating to movement of the agenda, so is it still the public input time period?
Yes, I apologize. I didn't call on you when I should have, so you've got the floor.
Okay. I'm requesting that it be a select board agenda item for us to discuss, putting it on the ballot in November to have our budget voted by ballot vote in March. So I have had many citizens ask me to help them create a petition to do so, but I don't think that's the best route to go. I think it's better to be a select board agenda so we can discuss it with the select board so that the wording is appropriate versus a petition that forces a potential special election. I don't really support that.
Okay, Jay?
Right, so what, if it would not be appropriate to be on the November item, we could either make it the change ourselves, or it has to be passed at a special town meeting. It would not be something that could be on the November ballot.
And actually, I think it can only be changed by the voters.
Okay,
So
but we would need a special town meeting. It's not something that we can vote on the same thing we're doing the presidential election.
you would need, you'd have to have a special in-person town meeting, and that could either be forced by a petition, asking you to
Or
do
by
that,
us.
or by you choosing to
right.
call that. And we could talk about it more at the agenda item, but at that meeting, you have the choice of either voting at the meeting to put it on Australian ballot, or voting at the meeting to do
put
an
the question
Australian
on the
ballot, and then everybody can vote on Australian ballot of should it be on Australian ballot. So I'll explain that better in another meeting. But
Yeah,
there's a-
agenda item. I didn't want you to get into it tonight.
I know,
Thank you.
I just took 30 seconds to kind of give the overview, but yes, I think according, unless you object, we can put it on the next meeting.
No, I was planning on.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Kara, I did call Josh after we spoke and we planned to put it on the meeting agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other public comment before we move on? Moving on, so we had a request to move item R up, so it's just below item H. Does the board have any objection to that, or,
not.
okay? So our agenda has now changed. Item R is now following H, between H and I. Josh, board, any other changes to the agenda before we continue?
No.
Okay, moving on. Josh, did you want to take item A?
Sure.
This is just a reminder on the May 6th
Just
meeting.
making a couple of quick notes. Yeah, so we have a public feedback meeting at the next select board meeting, which is May 6th, for looking at the preferred design of the redesign of the intersection of Thompson Road, Huntington Road, Bridge Street, and Cochran Road. That's the one where we had the option of a four-way stop or a mountable island in the middle of a Huntington Road portion. And the board was looking for some more public feedback, and after that time, to make a decision on which way to proceed.
And that input may be colored to some extent by what we decide about the speed bumps tonight.
Potentially. I mean, I think that they're somewhat separate because the intersection, whether people are driving 5 miles an hour or 50 on Cochran Road, that intersection's still an
Fundamentally
odd
unsafe,
spot.
yeah.
But it is all in the same general area.
Heidi?
Question on that, Josh. So there are two different proposals. One is having stop sign on everything.
Four-way stop.
And then the other one is to actually put an island in the middle of
Not in
it.
the middle.
Yeah,
Where?
sorry.
In Huntington, where Huntington Road comes into the
Kind of
intersection,
Shaped like this.
there would be a diamond or a lozenge-shaped island that basically you'd be able to turn right onto Thompson Road, or I don't have a map up,
Oh, yeah.
The maps are on the last select board meetings and stuff.
but it's not gonna be
It's
the same.
definitely easier to just look at it.
And it's my
It
understanding
makes
it's a
sense to do it.
flat island.
Yeah, so it's mountable curbs, so if a truck needed to make a turn. Yeah, so basically, yeah, so when you come down the end of Cochran Road, you sort of be forced to the right, and then you'd slow down and make your turn onto Bridge Street or on the Huntington Road, on the Thompson Road. And then coming on to Hinesburg, on the Huntington Road, you'd be separated from the traffic that's coming off of Huntington Road. So you'd kind of make your right-hand turn and there'd be some separation there. And again, it is easier to
It
diagram.
would kind of square it up, but leave the right of ways of how it is now with no stop signs the same, but kind of square it up to make it so people can't speed around there as much. But
A lot of
keep
the problem-
Keep the radius for the big truck so they can still make it.
Have we been having an issue there?
It's the state said it's one of the,
Accidents a day.
no, the state has told us that that is one of the most accident-prone intersections in the state.
The problem is people can cut the lane short, they can go sideways or, crossways. We need people to do this, not.
I
do
mean,
this.
like,
Particularly from, Cochran Road onto
Sorry.
Bridge or onto.
no, that's okay. I just don't want to go down the rabbit hole 20 minutes
Yeah,
later.
But this is why we want,
Online thing.
Yeah, definitely
right,
look at it.
this
And
is
if anyone
why
wants to definitely look
last
online.
meeting, we decided to make it, because there's gonna be a lot of public comment.
Yeah.
Not just vote on it or vote at the very next meeting, but to give people time to like ask questions about it, learn about it, review it. So it'll be next meeting.
So if it's a four-way stop, it would be similar to where Oak Hill Road is in Williston,
Yes.
where they put the stoplights or the stop signs and everyone now has to stop.
The difference being that Oak Hill Road does not have sidewalks at all four corners. And there would be short sidewalks to be able to have proper. There would be little corner sidewalks at each corner. To facilitate having a defined crossing lane and stuff like that, crosswalks. It's all in, it's in the last, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean, go ahead.
About that intersection. So is there no option for doing a less severe solution to begin with? Like, I mean, couldn't you just mark the crosswalks and put, the flashing lights and see if that works? And if that calms the complaints, I looked at the numbers for the accidents and there were 5 accidents at that intersection in like 3 years, dating back to 2019. So nothing current from 2019 forward. And I'm willing to bet that we've had more accidents at the intersection at Bridge Street than we had at the Huntington Road intersection.
If I might comment on that, Gene, about the flashing eliminated intersections with the buttons. CCRPC's advice on that is that there comes a point where people ignore them. If you have too many, you basically don't have any.
Crosswalks.
Yeah, those,
In a short span.
right. So we've already got 2 on Bridge Street and people have discussed putting one or 2 more, and the CCRPC says towns have tried that. The drivers just start ignoring them.
But Gene, I would encourage you to come to the meeting on May 6th and voice these concerns.
I've got that on my calendar.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I live very close to that intersection and there may not have been accidents, but there have been so many near
Ear
accidents.
accidents, yeah.
And I hear the screeching tires and I hear the honking horns because people come into that intersection and they're really unclear of what to do because
Yeah.
two places stop and the other 2 don't, and people get very confused. So
Thank you.
Josh
Josh,
still has their hand up.
Gene, do you have more to say? Your hand is still up.
Sorry, I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. Josh, did you want to speak to the reminder of the Recreation Summit on May 13th?
Sure. So this is a summit to talk about the future of recreation, pretty specifically at Volunteers Green as it relates to flooding and future flooding at Volunteers Green. We've invited some key stakeholders and key members of the community that are very involved in recreation and Volunteers Green, the 3 Parks Committee, Recreation Committee, DRB, zoning administrator, representatives from FEMA, representatives from floodplain management.
Those
to this
guys.
meeting. 3 Parks Committee, they were the first ones I mentioned. They're using their shorthand. And so we'll have that as a special select board meeting on May 13th. It will start at 6 p.m. I think we scheduled it for 3 hours to allow for a robust discussion about future recreation of Volunteers Green.
Denise?
Just a question, Josh, and but I'm wondering is there any way possible that we could change it to like the Volunteers Green Summit? So people don't get confused that it could be talking about the old Round Church Park or Brown's Court Park.
If we want to, we are specifically focusing on Volunteers Green. If that's the will of the board, we can change that. It's no big deal.
I have no objection.
Thank you.
That's good.
And then the 3 of us will work on an agenda here in the next week or so and get that finalized, or 4 of us. Whoever's all going to be involved. Okay.
So we had an eclipse. I was really looking forward to it. I took the day off from work and right before totality, my Irish setter ran away and I got an emergency page from work. And then I got into it with Berry City Police because I sat at the bottom of Kenyon Road and I looked at the long line of cars and I said, no, I can't be there in 45 minutes. I think it's going to take about 4 hours. I heard you came rushing back from Bahamas because you didn't want to miss it.
Bermuda. A little closer. No, not really.
Josh, did you want to give us a
Is it-
debrief on how the eclipse went?
Sure. So I can't speak for the moon and the sun.
Come on.
But I thought I thought it was actually spectacular. From a viewing perspective. From the town side, I'd like to thank the highway department for preparing the park. They roped off no parking signs on the right-hand side of the park access road to make sure that we weren't jamming up that road. They put up the road closed sign on Esplanade to make sure people weren't parking illegally on Esplanade Street. Duncan made sure that the park restrooms were put back together from the December flood and operational. We had porta potties in there as well, expecting a larger amount of people at Volunteers Green. Duncan also put up some no parking signs in appropriate places. Hinesburg Police Department made sure they had 2 officers on in Richmond, in Volunteers Green, just to ensure if there was a large crowd, they were there and ready to respond. So wanted to thank all of those folks for being ready and available and prepping for the eclipse. And I'd say there were less people at Volunteers Green than I really thought there was going to be. I think it filled up about 2/3 of the way with cars. If you got down to that loop, half the loop was still open, and then down beyond by the far soccer fields, there was still plenty of parking available. I took a walk through. Most of the cars are from out of town. I think about 80% of the cars are from out of state, from what I noticed. So a lot of folks kind of found our green, came up, and the few people I talked to said, we thought it'd be less crowded than Burlington, and it seemed to be.
Yeah.
There was a big cheer when the eclipse happened. People seemed to really enjoy it, and within 5 minutes, everybody was leaving. I was interested that up on Hinesburg Road by like 6 o'clock, there was cars backed up coming from Hinesburg down into Richmond. And it took a while for the highway to clear out. I think about 7 or 8 o'clock, it cleared out. It was pretty backed up. There was one accident on Route 2 that I don't know if that was really Eclipse related, two accidents.
No, there was one,
Sirens.
there was one
There was
accident
a,
on the
there was a
highway.
head on Route 2.
There was an
And
accident on the highway,
Highway.
immediately after the eclipse at about 6. And then so
the
traffic backed
looking
up to the exit and diverted down Route 2, at
Yeah.
which time there was a head-on on Route 2, which closed Route 2. So
But other than two accidents and some traffic, I think it went really well from a town management perspective.
And you did charge all those people an Eclipse viewing fee for the out-of-staters, right?
Thanks.
Very cool. Yes, and I also want to compliment the coverage for the police force. I came through town around, 11:45, 12 o'clock, and they were actually, performing a foot patrol, walking the sidewalk, which I was just so impressed with. And they were heading down towards the volunteers green, but I was just impressed with the fact that there was a foot patrol active. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Go ahead.
I talked to Fran Thomas, head of the Historical Society, and they opened up the round church for 2 days. They normally don't open it up until Memorial Day weekend, and there's a donation box in there. I'm one of the tour guides that maybe on a good day we might get $20. They made $500 that day.
Great.
You have another Eclipse, please?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I missed this one, so.
So somebody collected money, Jay. It wasn't me in parking, but they did good.
That's
To sort of
awesome.
piggyback on that, my son pointed out that this was the first total solar eclipse that the round church has experienced.
Oh, wow.
Is that
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on the eclipse? Okay.
Okay, this is a fun one.
Josh, did you want to speak to the police bargaining?
Yeah, so I think our best advice might be to first go into an executive session with the attorney for some advice and then come back out and discuss what we and discuss in
he
public
is.
session.
Okay.
And- Yep, and he's here. We'd also invited Chris Hoare from the union if he wanted to attend the meeting. It doesn't look like he's here. And the attorney and I, John, and I had discussed maybe inviting him into the executive session, but I don't see Chris from the union, so I don't think we need to invite him.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Jay.
I move to find that premature public knowledge about attorney-client communications would cause a town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage by revealing confidential and privileged information.
Okay, Jay, thank you for that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lisa. Motion made by Jay, seconded by Lisa Miller. Calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote. Don't all go at once.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
J.I.
And David, I. First motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we enter into executive session to discuss attorney-client communications under the provisions of 1 BSA 313A1 and to invite town manager Josh Arneson and attorney John Klesch into the executive session.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Adam. Motion made by Jay, seconded by Adam Wood. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
J.I.
And David, I. We are in executive session.
So I got Bard and John on Zoom. If you guys all just leave your computers here, is that all right?
That's fine.
And that way we're not trying to invite other computers into the room. Oh, wait, I didn't-
Okay. Are we ready to discuss the ARPA funds? Josh, you want to kind of give us an overview of what's up there? I'll give you a second.
Give me a second to get resituated.
Chairman, I'm gonna run ARPA just a minute, be back in 90 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, scrub off his tears.
Yeah.
This is all spray on.
Okay, ARPA funds. So over the last few months, I've become a little bit concerned about having the ARPA funds formally committed. And what that means, it's not just a motion by the select board that says we'd like to spend $450,000 on the park. You have to have that actually under contract by the end of the year and then spent by the end of 2026. Otherwise, the funds go away. And I had heard that there was, the town of Richmond claimed the funds as lost revenue, which was a standard allowance, which if you go back a couple of years when the funds first came out. You could, any town, any municipality could claim up to $10 million. So the town did that. That also opened up some uses of the funds. You didn't have to follow all the exact same rules. So I reached out to VLCT because I had heard there might be a way to use that as unclaimed revenue and sort of extend the use of the ARPA funds. So Katie Buckley is their resident expert on ARPA. I think that's basically all she does at VLCT. So she said that the way you could do it is to transfer that money into the general fund. The select board could do that via a motion. Anything that's not committed right now. And you would use that to offset payroll, which is a government expense that you don't have to follow procurement policy for. So we're not trying to buy paving or anything like that. And then that would create a fund balance. And then that fund balance could be transferred into a reserve fund, which would be established by the voters. So we would call a special meeting. The voters would get a chance to vote on establishing a reserve fund and transferring that money into that reserve fund. Once that reserve fund is established, that money would be there and would have specific rules on it as far as what it can be used for. So it would maintain its original intent. Exactly. But you would then not have the deadline of end of December, you have to spend it or lose it. So we'd also run that by our auditors to make sure that they were on board with this and that this was going to follow, cut mustard with them. As you looked at that with the auditors, they agreed that this is a proper way to proceed with doing it. It fits within the ARPA rules. Because essentially once you transfer it in and say it's for payroll, ARPA's satisfied and they're happy with that. So as we were preparing for the meeting last week, there was a new rule change, and I don't fully understand it yet because I've had a chance to read through it, that Katie said might change the guidance that she gives us. So we have a follow-up meeting with her on May 2nd to fully understand that, and then we'll come back on May 6th with some further guidance. Her initial reaction is that their initial advice, which is what we just went over right now, would still stand, but I want to give them a week or two to kind of digest the new rule from ARPA before we make final decision.
I think the idea makes sense, Mr. Chairman. We could have done this at the very beginning, technically speaking. We just did because we wanted to follow the spirit of the ARPA law. And the way I see it, this motion, we still would be.
Lisa?
We've got a project waiting, I think. We're sitting in it, this building. There's a number of things that this building needs. It's not a renovation, it's repairs. The post office roof, the hole in the foundation, some of the things that.
But the available
we
ARPA
will.
money would maybe buy us a doorknob.
Yeah, well,
And,
I thought it was a little more than that.
and the select board also has about $1 million that you've made motions for, I think roughly $1 million of this, or maybe more. There's less than $100,000.
Right.
The select board hasn't at least said,
Mhm.
we want to use it on sidewalk, we want to use it on a playground. So there's already been some public commitments, I'll say, rather than like contractual commitments for this money.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
More to follow, I suppose, but that's the general idea.
Questions, comments? Ready to move on?
Is there any drawback to doing this aside from just a lot of hoops to jump through to get it to happen? Is that kind of the?
Definitely some hoops to jump through. I think as we kind of thought about some ideas, logistically, it gets a little challenging. How much do you move? And then there'd be a gap. So say you made a motion on May 6th to move it, we wouldn't have a town meeting, let's say till September 1st. So there'd be a few month gap where how do we pay for current commitments? So how do we pay for engineers that are already under contract? How do we do that accounting, which we have to figure out. The other potential risk is you go to the town meeting on September 1st, let's just say, and the voters say, nope, we don't want to put it towards those funds. We want to take that and put it in the tax offset.
Which
That
they could do.
that could happen, and then that's the will of the voters. And then that would essentially just put at risk anything that's not currently under contract.
Yeah.
So, if we don't have, anything that's not currently under contract, we wouldn't be able to do, or we have to look for other funding sources. So it would be a bit of an educational piece to frequently asked questions, preparing for that vote. It would be in person though, so there'd be a chance to explain.
Heidi?
Financially, how much money is still left in that account?
Yeah,
89,000 maybe?
Well, there's money that's not allocated, and there's
Yeah.
money that's not spent.
let me pull that up.
I'm sorry, the allocation, I think is.
Right.
Yeah, and I know I've got that here. Just give me a second. I don't have the account balance on this sheet, but this will give you an idea of. So this sheet shows, and okay, you can see it. Let me make it a little bigger. So this sheet shows the total amount of funds, which is the 1.2 million, total committed by the select board. So these are motions that have been made and committed. Then this is the total under contract and spent. We've got about $213,000 that's either fully under contract or fully spent. So the 2188 for miscellaneous survey and mailing, that's been spent. The 119,000 for library restoration is under contract and coming up. And then of these, here's what's remaining to be placed under contract or spent. So we've got about $1 million that still remains to be put under contract.
But it's allocated.
But it's allocated. Well, it's allocated by the board. So there's $89,000.
So not
Right.
committed, but allocated, and then the total.
Yeah.
The total completely uncommitted or allocated or anything was $123,000. Right, it would just be the difference between the 141 and the 10. Right?
89,925.
This number here is
Oh.
is the amount that the board is yet to make motions on how to spend.
Okay.
And then the 1 million is what doesn't have a contract for yet.
Gotcha.
And so right now, the Parks Committee has done great work, and they're trying to get prices for everything. But we've run into, they can speak for themselves, but there are some obstacles that have come up, most notable being elevation. And so we might wind up finding out that 89,000 is going to be needed to actually make the full scope of the plan workable. So I wouldn't be I would not be in a huge rush right now to try to find a place to spend that. If we do the proposal that Josh is recommending, we have time to find the best place to use that. And I think it should be used as a cushion in the event that the recreation plan come back. Everything's more expensive these days. But I'm only one member.
And then, I know you had touched on this, I think last meeting or 2 meetings ago, Josh, but so we would need to physically to actually spend the money by
Or have it
December,
under contract.
or have it under contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, either one works.
Either one works.
Yeah, so for instance, the Bridge Street southern sidewalk block project, that's being final design right now. We probably won't get out to bid for that until late fall or really later this
Part of
year.
the Discussion with the committee last month about getting stuff done.
Right, and how quickly can we?
So it would buy us time on their end too, if you run out of time or a hiccup or any hiccup.
Yeah,
Denise?
Just a little update. Kendra and I and our entire committee have asked Josh if we can come before you on June 3rd and do a final presentation on Brown's Court. And we'll have John Lynn here who designed the plans, and we'll have everybody here. And just so that you know, we've pretty much gotten 4 quotes on everything that we've done.
that's hugely helpful.
And they're done and the quotes are done. And so we're gonna do a PowerPoint presentation and slideshow the whole bit for you for total Brown's Court so that we can get that done, get that under contract.
And I believe Brown Church.
And, oh, that's right, Round Church as well.
Awesome. Great.
Wow.
They've been working hard, folks.
But it's hugely helpful.
You shorten their timeline up a little bit.
Yeah. Get it done.
Great.
Any questions or comments on the ARPA funding? Are we ready to move on?
Yes,
Moving on,
the exciting one.
the public hearing on amendments to the park ordinance. Anybody care to make a motion to open a public hearing?
I'm rolling down like that to it. Mr. Chairman, I move to open the public hearing to consider amendments to the municipal park ordinance.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Second, Adam Wood.
Thank you, Adam. Motion made by Jay, seconded by Adam. This is a motion to open the public hearing to consider amendments to the municipal park ordinance. Calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Art, aye.
Adam, aye.
Lisa, aye.
Jay, aye.
And David, I. We are in a public hearing.
Do we want to do the next thing, or do we want to read the ordinance?
According to statute, the ordinance that changes must be read aloud.
Can we forego reading it, but then
Did you
give a
make the motion?
synopsis- Then give a synopsis of why we're changing it?
Yeah, so that's line 191 in the memo.
I move to forego reading the entire ordinance aloud and read only the title.
Mr. Chairman, I will second that.
Thank you. Motion made by Adam, seconded by Jay. This is a motion to forego the reading of the entire ordinance aloud and only read the title. Any further discussion? I suspect not. Calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Jay, I.
And David, I. So title only would be, it would just be the public hearing on amendments to the municipal park ordinance, right?
I think that'll cover it.
Okay.
And then I can share a summary of the changes. And I'll share my screen as well. Okay, so these changes rename Browns Court Ball Field to Browns Court Park under general section and on attachment A. So you can see those changes here from ball field to park. Under general section, we also include Overrocker Park in the ordinance, so the addition of Overrocker Park and the description that it is off of Cochran Road. Changes to section 4 recreational activities, subsection B1 to read as follows. No person shall, without written permission secured in advance from the Richmond administrative offices, set up tents, campers, vehicles, or any other temporary shelter for the intention of overnight use. And we added a map to the addendum. We had these previous maps of Volunteers Green and Browns Court, and we added a map of Overrockers Park because that's being added as well in the same basic style with the box and the allowed parking areas.
Okay.
Josh, did the parking advisory committee have any input on this?
This was driven by the Parking Advisory Committee. They had the charge from the select board to look into overnight parking. They narrowed that down to recreation parking, because that's sort of what they're mostly focused on. And then they came to the board a month or so ago, a couple months ago, with these suggested changes for what they thought that they could control and the.
Any questions or comments from the public? Denise?
So will new signage have to go up, especially in Overrockers Park? I mean, I don't know if there's signage there now, but will we need to get new signage to make sure that people know there's no overnight parking?
I think we should. I think the simple answer is we can. Absent these ordinance changes, we can't. We can put a sign up, but it's got no enforcement. These amendments in the ordinance would allow us to put up signs with enforceability because they're backed up by the ordinance. That's largely what drove this, is we had no authority to put the signs up before because there was no ordinance to back them up.
Right.
So the short answer is probably.
Just looking at the map there of the Overrocker Park, it appears that there was a big blue box that included a bunch of the Cochran property and so forth. Is that really what the park?
No, that box is not exactly to scale and doesn't exactly follow the
Okay.
property line, which I think is closer to along the road and down here. But I don't think that these follow those exactly either. So it's sort of to show this is a general area. This is where there's designated parking areas, but yeah, we're not meaning to include the Cochran Road parking area. This is specific to this parking area, this parcel over here.
Any further comments? Do we have any comments in the public? I can't see.
No, I don't see any hands.
Is that everybody that's?
This is Fran.
Go ahead, Fran.
I cannot figure out how to raise my hand tonight, so, my
Good
comment is, why aren't we including Round Church Park, in this ordinance?
Ordinance change.
So I don't know that it.
Yes, it's not in there.
It's not in there. And I've mentioned before, or I've commented before that Round Church Park should be part of, these ordinances. Round Church Green.
So could we add that tonight without rewarning a hearing?
Uh, Hmm. I would say no, because it's not been a
It's a
warrant
substantial
portion of it. I
change.
think it's a substantial enough change that I would,
We want to defer
I mean-
approval, or do we want to approve what we've
I
got?
think you can prove what you have. We
Prove
come
it.
back and add in.
Let's
the-
get something.
Hearing or suspend it rather than.
Or approve it so that you can enforce this.
Go
So
ahead and
there's still
approve
a-
this, but then come
Yeah, you
back
can come
and
back
address.
The next meeting with a simple
Well,
enough
yeah.
change to the general section, if you wanted to, warn a hearing for that.
I think that sounds fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
Hang on. Any
sorry.
further public comments before we entertain closing the public hearing? So Fran, we hear your suggestion and the board sounds favorable to having another public hearing to include the round church. Okay, go ahead, Jay.
Thanks for pointing that out. Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing to consider. That's how it's spelled. I move to close the public
Oh,
hearing to
sorry.
consider amendments to municipal park ordinance.
No, the memo says to consider.
Yeah, I was copying and pasting from another time and didn't pull that out.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Jay and seconded by Lisa Miller. The motion is to close the public hearing to consider the amendments to the municipal park ordinance. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Jay, I.
And David, I. Public hearing has closed. Now we can take up adoption of the amendments to the ordinance as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the amendments to the municipal park ordinance as presented.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Second, Adam?
Thank you, Adam. Motion made by Jay, seconded by Adam to move to adopt the amendments to the municipal park ordinance as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. This is a motion to adopt the amendments to the municipal park ordinance as presented. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Jay, I.
And David, I. So Josh, technical question. Would this be the time to make a motion to have another public hearing on inclusion of the round church in the municipal park ordinance?
Let me see, typically you guys would review a draft before you go to a motion to a hearing, but if all you want to do is add, let's see, we would need to add in Round Church Park or Round Church Green to the general section. I think that'd be the only change, and then add in a map. If you guys want to do that, and we can get that back for a hearing. I think we can get it. It might make sense to add it to the next meeting in May, just to give enough time for posting. So May 20th, because I think we need 2 weeks to post. We need to get it into the paper. So if we go to May 20th for that hearing, I think we could do that. And I'll just
So
get
bring it to
posted
the
by then.
next select board meeting to consider it.
No, let me, if all you want to do is add in Round Church Green in the general and add a map. Warn the hearing for May 20th. I'll get it posted and warned, and then I'll bring a draft on May 6th, but we'll have the actual hearing just to allow for time to
Okay.
post on May 20th. Does that work?
The actual hearing on May 20th.
Yep.
Okay, Mary?
It sounds like you've given it the right amount of time, like 30 days.
Yeah.
For Fran, *6 raises your hand, *6 lowers your hand, but I think it would behoove us to include the parking area in front of the Richardson house, because the green itself, nobody would park there, but to me, Overrocker Park would include everything, but
Yeah.
since there is technically a street, I think you might want to reach to include that where it says no overnight parking. I'd really appreciate that included. It might say it now, but I think that really should be included in the ordinance.
I agree.
Well, that,
Thank you.
We'll see how you did off Cochran Road.
well,
Maybe you could just put in parentheses, is that little street named
Yeah.
Roger.
Round
but
Church Road?
that might be covered under the traffic ordinance
Or
though.
maybe.
So
Yeah, this is Bart. I think that's the issue, that you have competing interests here, that the green is a park, but the road is the road, right?
Right.
that's where I think it probably lies. And then if you added the green to this, everything about a park would apply. but I don't think the parking would. I'd have to double check the municipal parking ordinance, but it's probably in the traffic ordinance. Which we could make a change to that traffic ordinance if you wanted to, but it's a separate ordinance to change. Which,
Well, that might be
seems to
the
me
other side too.
It would be the right time to take care of both of those.
so maybe we just look at both of those. Well, maybe we come back May 6th with the draft and then we warn a hearing after that of both. And that way we have a chance to think about it. And I don't think there's a pressing problem at that.
Brown
At the round church.
No,
But either way, but at least we have,
potential for it.
we have some time though to make sure we do it right, warn a hearing, get it done.
There have been some problems with bike tour companies just
Yes,
co-opting all the parking.
that's true too. Okay, so we'll bring both back for review and get a hearing warrant after that. Okay.
Anything else? Ready to move on?
Like Richard Drive.
Okay.
VBT and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Consideration of making appointments to the Town Center and Library Buildings Committee. Josh, did you want to cue this up?
Sure, so this is a follow-up on the conversation that's been happening since the bond vote failed on town meeting day about what is the future of the Town Center and Library Buildings Committee. The board has discussed a few items as far as potential next steps and committee membership. We reached out to all current committee members. They all said that they would be willing to kind of help launch the committee, but only one said they'd be willing to be appointed to that committee. So that's Amy Wardwell has indicated that she'd be willing to be appointed and continue. And we do also have, it's 3 interested applicants in the packet. And one of them has since withdrawn. So let me pull that up. I have my notes in front of me. So Amy Wardwell is interested in being reappointed. Mike Storrs and Tom Lyle are also interested in being appointed to the committee. Bob Markey had initially submitted a letter of interest, but has come to me today to say that he's reconsidered just based on some other demands he has on his time. But it sounds like he'd be willing to kind of check in with the committee and lend his expertise, which is in building, to any questions that the committee might have.
Amy, Mike, and who was the third?
Amy Wardwell, Mike Storrs, and Tom Lyle have all expressed interest in being appointed to the committee.
Okay.
You could create a committee of 3 tonight. You could add a select board member to it. You could create it of 3 or 4.
I was thinking about potentially putting my name in, but I don't think I know that I can't do it Thursday, so I wouldn't be able to do it on that day.
Yeah, just because it has traditionally been on a Thursday doesn't mean it has to be. So I think you'd probably want
Don't
to do.
wanna
I hear it.
expect it to change on my behalf either. I think that's unreasonable.
I
Well,
can't
one of
say
the
that-
potential members is
yeah.
right here, Mr. Storrs. Do you have any objection to moving it off Thursday?
I do not.
What day would work well for you?
I'm retired. I'm pretty free.
I think it would be a discussion of committee members as well as what rooms are available in other committee meetings, which Duncan has a pretty good handle on and can help you out.
So can we have a motion to appoint Amy Wardwell, Mike Storrs, Tom Lyle, and Adam Wood,
I'll put my name in too.
and Lisa Miller?
There you go. Now you got 5.
This is Bard, so moved.
This is Jay, second.
Thank you, Bard. Thank you, Jay. So the motion is made by Bard and seconded by Jay is to appoint Amy Wardwell, Mike Storrs, Tom Lyle, Adam Wood, and Lisa Miller. Adam Wood and Lisa Miller being select board members to the Town Center Library Campus Committee. Any further discussion? And this committee probably won't be meeting on the first and third Monday or Thursdays, but the committee, once appointed, can work that out. So absent any further conversation, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourselves and signify your votes.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I guess, to recuse myself from this one. Seems prudent.
Usually,
I'll abstain.
Jay, I.
And David, I. Congratulations. You've all been appointed.
So as far as next steps, I'll start an email with all the appointed members to try to find a time that works to meet. We can discuss that on email because it's just scheduling. And then once we find a time to meet, you guys set up the meeting. I'll try to attend your first meeting as well. And I'll reach out to the former members, have them attend. to kind of help with a handoff and a start.
So technical question, should Bard, Jay or I wish to attend these meetings, would that be okay?
Yep, because it's a warned public meeting of a body and
That's what
having
I
a quorum with the
thought.
quorum, that would be okay.
I just wanted to make sure.
You'd be fine.
Okay.
Do we want to discuss at all the scope or charge to the resurrected or new committee?
Maybe, Lisa?
Could the committee work that out?
I think that's
I mean,
appropriate.
I think there's a lot that's been done. There's.
There is,
probably
it's not a
little
cold
range.
handoff. This would be the old committee morphing into the new committee.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not that familiar with the details of what they've done. I don't think anyone is that we've not before, so.
Well, it's only a stack of papers that's not
Yeah,
together.
right, so divide them in 5 and pass them around.
Does that answer your question, Bard?
Hopefully Amy's thing.
Well, so in terms of process, what I would recommend then, if that's our approach, and I think that's certainly a viable and plausible approach, is to ask the committee to come back to us and check in on their scope of work and their sort of guidelines, if you will, how they're going to proceed, and have that another discussion here. And partly that's for endorsement by the select board, and partly because sometimes people show up at the select board meetings that don't show up at other meetings. So another chance for people to see what's going on and what clearly is an important committee.
Mike, Adam, Lisa, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
that would be necessary for anyone to understand. what's
I agree.
happening.
It's gonna create the most functional committee with.
any further discussion before we move on? Moving on. Okay, so next is the update regarding not receiving the VOREC grant for a playground in consideration of designating the $100,000 in ARPA funds designated as a match for this grant to use toward a playground. Do you have anything to add to this, Josh?
Sure. So this was $100,000 that the board had set aside for ARPA funds to go towards the match. The town did not receive that grant. And at that time, I looked back at the motion, it was sort of unclear in the discussion as well as in the motion of if that was to be in addition to the $450,000 set aside for recreation or part of that $450,000. In talking with the 3 Parks Committee, they'd like that to be in addition because I think they have some ideas of using $100,000 or so of that 450 that was set aside, plus this 100,000 to go towards a playground. And I'll turn it over.
So we set aside 450,000
Mhm.
plus allocated this 100,000 in matching funds.
Right, well, that was what was unclear, that I reviewed the discussion and the motion from that 100,000 was it intended to be in addition to the 450 or was it intended to be part of the 450 because it was recreation? And that's where I think we want to kind of clear that up now that we don't have that match and determine where does that 100,000 go?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we had a similar scenario come up with the broom grant, which we didn't get. So we said, well, then let's just take the money that we were going to use and spend it anyway. And I think this is a similar situation. I know that the playground prices are not cheap.
No,
And so I think it makes sense. We don't want to go to all this trouble to put in new recreational facilities and then nickel and dime them. I mean, I'm not trying to say let's be spendthrift either, but I think given how expensive things are, adding this $100,000 in any way makes sense.
I agree. We were planning on spending on that.
Yeah.
This is a match, so there's no reason to change that.
Bard's hand.
go ahead, Bard.
You know, since if I recall correctly, the 450 was unencumbered. It was kind of open. What's it for? So if we're going to add the 100, I think that would make 550. And I don't think we should frame it as here's 100 for a playground and 450 for something else. I think it's total budget of 550. We haven't really seen a plan of the different things that are either included or not included in the plan. So perhaps it's prudent to say up to 550 across all the expenditures, including but not limited to a playground or playgrounds.
Makes sense.
You want to phrase it as a motion?
Sure. So, propose to add the 100,000 to the previously approved 450,000 allocation, I guess, for the committee to propose expenditures and improvements related to recreation.
Mr. Chairman, I will second that motion.
Thank you, Jay. So the motion made by Bard and seconded by Jay is to hold the $100,000 in ARPA funds that was originally reserved for a match for the VOREC grant to be reserved and combined with the $450,000 originally allocated for the Recreation Committee for the parks. Did I summarize that correctly?
I believe so.
Okay. Any further discussion? Here, Denise?
I just want to thank Bard for his motion, but also Sherry Lynn, who is a member of the Recreation Committee, and the work and the hours that they did with the VOREC grant. And she graciously has agreed to send all that documentation our way, so that when we apply for the next grant for the playground, we'll be able to use some of the documents that she's already done the research on. So she has been amazing, and just would like to thank her from our committee.
Thank you.
Lisa Corey.
Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to, I think I might have missed some of the meetings where the recreation grant or the ARPA money going to the recreation was discussed. Is it the same money going to the Parks Committee as the recreation? Is that one and the same?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because I was curious, because I know in the surveys that went out for public comment about how they wanted to spend the ARPA money related to recreation, Cochran Road recreation came up quite a bit. There were a lot of people that listed that, and that's not a park. So is it just automatically excluded from consideration for this?
I speak as former chair of the ARPA committee. There were, you're absolutely correct, a number of suggestions about building a trail parallel to Cochran Road, or other means to make pedestrian safe corridors there and bicycle safe corridors. We found that there was not sufficient land the length of Cochran Road to be able to run a trail the whole way, and that it would have been very expensive anyway. So it's not that we excluded it, but we kind of stumbled upon a different option. We're going to be adding fog lines to Cochran Road in the near future. So there will be, for one thing, fog lines tend to narrow the lane. People tend to drive slower when lanes have been narrowed, and it'll give a marked shoulder for pedestrians and cyclists to use. So I think that's kind of a poor man's way of accomplishing some of the same end without actually building a separate trail.
Okay, and was the fog lines, was that already discussed in another meeting? I don't want to.
A fog line is basically a white line.
No, I know what it is, but I'm just curious if that idea of that would be
part of the road work.
On the agenda later tonight as well.
And it's going to be discussed later tonight too.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion before calling the motion to a vote? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, aye.
Lisa, aye.
Jay, aye.
And David, aye. Motion passes. So next, a little shift in the agenda. We are moving R up to follow H. So now an update on the conservation easement for Browns Court.
Want me to do it? All right.
Sure.
So, at the last meeting, we discussed, creating a conservation easement on Brown's Court, either for 50 years or in perpetuity, and we wanted to go to our attorney to draft easement. So Bard and I met with our attorney on, sort of our desire. He is currently reviewing some of the deed information that we have. I got to get him some stuff from, the surveyor, Chris Haggerty, who's going to get a bunch of the things over to the attorney. He's also reached out to Jeremy Hoff from the Richmond Land Trust to begin some discussions with them as far as what they would like to see in that easement. And that's really our update right now. We've sort of given him the charge. He's working on some things. He'll probably have some follow-up questions for us. And we'll come back when we have more information, but the process is in motion and we do have a lot of the research already done, thanks to Chris and the Parks Committee. So sort of an unthrilling update, but that's where we're at.
Easy to understand.
Easy to understand tonight. That's a good one.
Oh, we're moving it forward. It's not falling off the.
We're continuing to move it forward. Yeah.
So
Any-
that could return as quickly as our next meetings in May. Yeah.
Denise?
I just want to update you, Chris Haggerty and his firm went to Brown's Court a week ago Tuesday, and they put up tons of stakes and they put up the bright red tape so that everyone can see the boundary lines. And it was really quite interesting. And if you have a chance to go walk around the field, it's pretty great.
Thanks, Denise.
We might have some boundary issues to address in the future because there is
That's
one.
not where I thought it was.
There is one that you look at that and go, that is not where I thought it was. So I think I know Fran's doing some work with the adjoining property owner to kind of figure out where we want to go. But yes, we'll work on that.
So, David, as chair, I would only observe to you that this illustrates the benefit of hiring a professional when it comes to things like property lines.
A line is a line. Good point.
Dave, can I update one more thing?
Sure.
So also tomorrow morning at 9:30, Test Stores and myself are meeting with a property owner who owns the tree, but the big dead branches are hanging over on Brown's Court. And I know by law, it says if the branches are hanging over, you can cut them. But just as common courtesy, we've asked him to come together and we're meeting tomorrow just to show him, we want to take that branch out and that branch out as per the recommendation of multiple tree companies. So we're meeting tomorrow at 9:30 and we're trying to notify all the adjacent landowners that this is happening. We need to take that branch. And Fran already did with one of the landowners that you alluded to. So, and then we meet with the second one tomorrow. And that's the only two that have branches that hang over.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Are we ready to move on? Sounds like we are. Okay, so the next is consideration of approval of a conservation fund request for tree planting at Volunteers Green.
I will turn it over to John Cart, who made the request.
Welcome, John.
If John's not there, I can speak to this project.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there, Judy. We also have Judy and joining via Zoom.
Judy, John's here, but don't
Oh,
let
no.
that.
If
You're
John's
welcome.
there, he can go for it.
Okay.
Didn't see him.
I'm John Cart, resident in Richmond. And I'll say a few years ago with Mary and a few other town residents, we put together a committee to plant more trees at Volunteers Green to try and widen that buffer before the river eroded more of the bank. And we put 3 years ago, we put in about 400 trees. Many of them are doing well, but they're still mostly not that big. And the river has continued to eat away at the bank. And coming back to you now with this proposal to plant some more trees there, not as much as I'd like to plant, widen that buffer more. I don't want to get in a battle with the soccer teams and the baseball league. So to put more trees within the existing footprint of where we planted, fill in some gaps, fill in some places where trees aren't doing as well. And this time around, we'll be working with middle school students and St. Michael students to do the planting. Tools are coming from VYCC, so the funding request is just for the trees themselves. And one bunch of the trees we're planting will be a lot of shrub willow, which once they get started are really good. You can take cuttings from them, get them to reroot. So hopefully we will start developing a sort of our own supply for further enhancing that area.
I saw Mary shaking her head vigorously when you mentioned shrub willow. Mary, is that something you're familiar with?
It's that they're so easy to root that you have your own supply.
Yeah, even I could do it, yeah.
Really? My God. Well, the same thing with elderberry. You know, so this is the time when you would cut those shoots, stick them in the ground and they root almost automatically. Fantastic.
Judy, did you have anything to add?
No, I thought, John, you mentioned that some trees had gotten washed away in the flooding too, that you were trying to replace.
So there were, yeah, we had really hoped that the existing bank was going to give our trees a good 10 years of growth before they became the de facto buffer, but you know, the July and December floods took some big bites out of the bank. So some of the trees we planted are now right at the bank.
Wow.
So we're going to do our best to help them grow quickly.
No, I haven't been down there since the flooding. How much was taken out?
Yeah, it's you know, it's a fascinating bit of looking. You'll see some places where, you know, the river dumped a lot more sediment.
Yeah.
And other places where it took out 10 feet of bank, but it wasn't a clean, smooth change. You know, in places it took out big hunks where a tree would fall in. Just the interesting way in which rivers and riverbanks work, it's not consistent.
What's left there seems really soft. The soil.
It is
really sandy.
very sandy.
So
I don't know if it's all underneath like that or.
one of the many reasons all our floodplains were turned into cornfields was this flat stuff in the state, but two, the annual flooding brought in not just sand, but a lot of silt, which was really rich in nutrients.
Just like the River Nile.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so. So if you go there, like if you dig at your house, you're gonna, you know, go down a few inches and you're gonna hit glacial till. You dig along the river and you can go down 5 or 10 feet and not hit rocks. I usually challenge the middle school students to find the biggest rock when they're planting trees, and most of them. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, along the river, it's a lot of sand and silt. It's just the nature of nature there.
Half of my yard is sand and half is clay.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right at probably a level of whatever from Glacial Lake, Vermont or something like that. So yeah.
Is this the best case? Like, is this gonna give us the best likelihood of having a park in another decade, or is there more that you want to do? Or less?
Short of riprap.
Better chance.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, nothing is going to. So the river is definitely, you know,
Want to guarantee, John?
you want. I will guarantee you that in 6 months there will still be a park there. But you know,
Some type, yeah.
If this year supposedly there won't be El Nino, but there may be more hurricanes. So it really depends. You know, the December flood wasn't as high, but seemed to do more damage than the July flood. So it's you know, it's timing, it's velocity. But the more, you know, the more we can keep vegetation growing there, the better chance we'll have of keeping it there. But yeah, we're gonna, you know, it's gonna keep eating away at it. So if we could keep moving in, get the, you know, the baseball fields to contract a bit or the soccer fields to contract a bit and plant a few more trees, the better chance we'll have at a long-term volunteer screen.
Fran?
Yes, John, you said in the description of what you're going to do, that was part of the select board packet, that 50 of the trees would be near the bandstand area. So we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do there. So I'm a little concerned as to where you were planning. You said the riprap area, so maybe you could explain a little bit more what the riprap area means.
So, thanks, Fran. So Trevi and Stenger, who put this project together with, and proposed this, we're going to plant it actually in amongst the rocks. In that, which, to help, both to help hold that spot together. I know there was some concern expressed by some people that people may fall off the cliff edge there as they're, standing up around the band shell. But, we plant them in sort of halfway up that slope, Fran, to get, and these again would be shrub willows, so they'll only grow 6 or 8 feet tall. They won't obstruct views, but they'll provide some bit of a barrier and help root things in place. But we're not touching the band shell area at all.
Okay, thank you.
John, remember a year ago when we were experiencing a drought and everybody was praying for rain?
I've heard of that,
Prayed
yes.
too hard.
Are we ready for a motion?
I think so. Any other questions or comments for John or Judy? Fran, is your hand still up?
I'll figure out how to lower it.
Okay, thanks. Denise?
John, just one more question. I know you touched on it briefly. I just want to make sure that you're not encroaching on the soccer fields and or the baseball fields. And,
Scout Center,
Okay.
and we're not doing it this time.
okay, how many,
The river is encroaching on
Oh, I
both those
know.
places, and if we
I know.
don't do something about that, then they're gonna be gone.
right, how many feet away will the new plantings
Oh,
be?
they're gonna be within the existing footprint of where we planted. So
Okay. Oh,
we're not
perfect.
widening
Awesome.
that anymore,
Okay,
this time.
thank you.
But, as we see the river come closer, we're gonna be back and ask to plant some more trees.
Yeah. We
John,
ready for a motion? Oh,
just one quick question.
Mhm.
A lot of the trees are pretty tipped over from the force of the river.
Yeah.
Are they gonna come back up?
No, so all those trees that have been undercut, they're hanging over the river, they're gonna continue to be undercut, and, I've asked DEC if we could chain them to the bank well, you can't. One way to protect the bank without putting rock in their riprap is to bring in trees, and the cost of that would be really expensive, so it's like, well, can't we just chain the existing ones up and wait till they fall in the river? But we've really figured out how to go about doing that and whose approval we would need and what sort of language we would need. But,
I'm just talking about the ones out in the
oh yeah,
field.
so there are a bunch of, they're hanging out over
That
the
they're-
river. And
No,
they're gonna-
not over the river, but right in the field, right?
they were
uh,
knocked over by the
right
flood,
near
but
the
they're still on the
Oh,
ground.
the
And they're-
little ones, yeah.
Yeah, they really got
We
bent
will
over.
restake those and try and get those growing, but
Yeah.
they'll follow the sun
Okay.
and right themselves with time.
Mm-hmm.
But, sorry, I'm
That's okay.
thinking about the wrong set of trees.
Mr. Chairman, I move to allocate $1,310 in conservation reserve funds to cover the cost of supplemental trees for Volunteers Green as described in the proposal.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Adam, second?
Thank you, Adam. So a motion is made by Jay, seconded by Adam, is to move to allocate $1,310 in conservation reserve funds to cover the cost of supplemental trees for the Volunteers Green as described in the proposal presented by John and Judy. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye. Jay, aye.
And David, aye. We're ready to move on.
Thank you.
Thanks,
We'll name
everyone.
the trees after you, so thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Judy.
No,
Thank you.
Susan with us? Oh, perfect. So next is an update on the Share the Road campaign, and I'll turn this over to Susan Wells.
Yep, Susan Wells from Richmond. Last summer, I think it was, that we, the Transportation Committee formed a subcommittee to look at educational things that we could do to educate people and drivers and bikers and walkers about safety on the road. We wanted to make some clever signs, and we had all kinds of grand ideas, but you can't really put signs on public property or on the roads. So we came up with an idea of having a contest to create and display a sign or a diorama or something to show how you share the road. So we took the "This is Richmond" phrase, and we've said, "This is Richmond, we share the road." And so it's meant to be educational and fun, and to put up different displays. And we have directions, a sheet of directions, which there's a link to. It explains what we're after. And we give some examples. For example, if you were going to do something about bikers, it would be wear bright clothing. You know, you can legally ride two abreast, but to be kind, you know, go single file. And for cars, stay at least 4 feet from bikers and so forth. So we've listed a lot of the different things that people might create a display about. And we have also we will have a link to an entry form, and people will say where they live and what they're going, which category they're going to do. We have 3 categories: cars and drivers, bikers, and we've been asked to add horses to that, and walkers and runners. And so there will be prizes, 3 prizes for each of the 3 categories. And we have some cash prizes. We have $100 for first prize. And we have gift cards from local businesses and Local Motion donated bike lights, front and rear bike lights for us. So I think it'll be fun. The judging will be from May 29th to June 5th, and then we'll award the prizes. We have been working with a young student, high school student, to create a poster, and she's almost done. We've been tweaking it a little bit here and there, but we'll be putting up posters, laminated posters around town, and doing a couple of notices in Front Porch Forum about the contest. So
And is there an age limit to take part?
no, in fact, we hope families and
So Lisa and I, we have a chance.
you do.
I'd love to do this.
Yes, you'll be in a special category, Jay.
I always.
That's to be special.
I'm special.
It's another coloring project.
Who needs her?
You missed a great discussion at the sewer meeting about coloring books for sewer,
Oh, yeah.
for water and sewer.
But we hope actually maybe the elementary school might do a display out on front of the school, or, you know, the high school kids might get excited about it. So
Judy, go ahead.
you're on mute.
You're still, there you.
I think it's a great idea, but as I drive through other towns and I see the bike lanes, I don't understand how we can have a slogan that says, "We're Richmond, we share the road," when we're not, we're having a difficult time sharing the road because we don't have those bike lanes.
We're about to.
Okay,
Got money?
Yeah.
okay.
Just to follow up, I mean, the fog lights are going to create somewhat of a lane.
Yeah.
They're not ideal, and Cochran Road, as an example, is just so narrow that I don't think we could get a lane in there. But the Transportation Committee got a grant to work with a contractor to do a study of all of Cochran Road, and then a very detailed study of the 2 25-mile-an-hour portions on either end of Cochran Road. And they're going to come up with some recommendations on what we can do if there isn't room for a trail. What can we do? So we're hoping that we'll get some other ideas there that might translate to other roads as well.
Jeannie?
You're muted.
Jeannie, I see you have your hand up, but you're muted.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh, muted again.
You're muted again, Jeannie. If you're on a laptop, hold your hand down on the space bar. You're unmuted now. You're all set.
Yeah, I've been having trouble all night getting in and out of this. So, anyhow, my question was just, the dioramas and the posters, do you have plans to display them at the library or the town center or a web page, or where we can all
Well-
see these?
Yeah, well, these will be on people's lawns.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're gonna be, because we can't have them anywhere public. We can't put signs up just anywhere. So we'll be going around to people's yards to see what they do. And I think we'll take pictures of them, and then we can display the pictures on a bulletin board.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. The next on our agenda is consideration of installing speed tables in the 25-mile-an-hour zones on Cochran Road. Speed tables may be a premature label for this. Did you want to lead this up, Josh, or did you want us to get it to Pete?
No, I think speed tables is correct. Let's turn it over to Pete. He can speak to it much better than I can, and I'll share visual aids as we get into it.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking portable speed bumps.
Oh, we're trying to move away from
It's a
that.
real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pete's got some better ideas here, I think, based on our experience with temporary speed bumps.
We should volunteer as tank traps.
Oh, very
Don't
good.
stop anything.
Well, short of that, turn it over to Pete.
So it sounds like the general consensus is the eastern end and the western end of Cochran Road need speed control devices. I've heard that repetitively especially from Jay. We put in temporary speed bumps on the western end last year. A lot of people didn't care for them because they were too abrupt, but they were quite expensive and they're really a one-time use. When we go to remove them, the spiking system that holds them into the ground, you literally have to destroy the rubber mats to get them off the road. I think they're like $2,000 for each segment. So, if we're sure that we really want to go to speed humps or speed tables on both ends, going to asphalt will be year round. It'll be cheaper and it'll be one time for us to put them in. I think, that for the town's perspective and for us for install them, it's going to be much easier. So the question Josh asked me is on the eastern end, where would the locations be best suited to put them? I think we're going to need 3 down there because we have 3 side roads. You have Duxbury Road, West White Hill, and Dugway Road. So yeah, this is the E911 map right here, showing the 3 proposed locations I think would be suited best for these. It's mostly suited right in the residential area where we're trying to control the speeds the most. Just after Duxbury Road, before the sharp curve, just by Wheeler Lane, which is about half the distance from the Huntington River, and Dugway Road. And just as you enter into the 25 zone, just a slight distance into the residential area. I think these 3 locations would work very well for whichever side road you came off from. You would go a short distance and run into a speed table. So you'd be keeping your speeds, obviously keep your speed down. So that's just my recommendation. I know there's a whole study process that we went through on the other end of the road, which took forever. I don't think this is necessary this time around to do that, but I was just asked to what I thought, so this is what I came up with.
Questions for Pete?
Yeah, that really looks great. I live right on the Edmonds Bridge. Been here 36 years this summer. Right on the river, across from the Johnson house that used to be the Hammerslow house. And I take my life in my hands every day when I cross the street to get my mail. I spent it when they rebuilt the bridge, the Edmonds Bridge. It used to be just these old cables, and they rebuilt it up about 2-3 feet and 2 feet in front of my driveway. And there's a blind spot on the other side of the bridge. Just as they're entering, they can't see us, we can't see them. And when they come around the Bombardier Field, at 45, 50 miles an hour. I don't know how they do it without spinning out. And I know Josh and other people have heard this and Jay have heard this from me before, but I got hit in the driver's door, pushed sideways onto the Hammerslow lawn, and spent a year in bed. I have been trying since 1996 to get those yellow speed bumps. And now I know the difference between the asphalt ones, which I think are called humps, and the yellow speed bumps where you really have to practically stop or you're going to kill the bottom of your car. And so those higher yellow ones are ones that I would like to see in those three places. I was also thinking, I was watching the video on the meeting that I missed Monday night, and the stretch of the Cochran Road, I cannot believe how fast these cars go. And when I'm trying to cross the road, I go like this to them, and they speed up on purpose. So I was thinking, the whole stretch of road that's 45 miles an hour, why not in one, either halfway or two places, put those pavement spear humps so that they have to slow down in the middle of that stretch. That was just a thought. Maybe it's crazy, but I really would like to. I have been trying since 1996 to get those speed bumps and when I saw those temporary ones down at the other end where there's an actual stop sign, I get really upset. When I saw the sun thing, the signs, the electronic signs down at the other end at the beginning, and I spoke to one of the police officers and said, why do they have one when they have a stop sign down there when we're the ones that are practically getting killed coming out of our houses? I can't make a left turn into my driveway without just sitting there for a while. And then if I try to make a left turn, somebody will come around the other lane and try to pass me by, even though they see my blinker on. And he said to me, well, they got the machine because they yelled louder than the people on your end of the road. So I'm yelling loud.
Okay.
And have been for a while. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Pete for his understanding of my monomaniacal focus on road safety. As somebody who pedestriates along Cochran Road a lot, I've seen
Pedestriates?
I'm making up new words left and right tonight.
That's a good one. Never heard it.
Perambulates. No, I like pedestriates better. I've seen exactly what Judy is talking about. People who are aggressively anti-pedestrian who will, I've had to jump into the ditch multiple times when cars have literally aimed at me. I think this is a very good plan. I like it. I'm glad that this looks like a workable plan. The one thing I want to add, Judy, is that if I remember the manual and uniform traffic control devices, read that sometime. It's illegal to put a speed bump in the middle of a section of a road above a certain mile per hour. Even though I understand completely what you're saying, try to get the people who should be going 45, but who are actually going 60, to slow back down. It's just strongly not recommended to do that. Other than that, though, I agree with what you're talking about, especially vis-a-vis getting into your property. You shouldn't have to sit there on a rural back road waiting to make a left turn into your driveway because other people are driving like psychopaths.
Mary?
Hi, Mary Holt. I appreciate you mentioning that book because when I was on the select board, I bought a copy of it. Yeah, it's quite a read. But as it relates to signage, any signage that ends up on Cochran Road or on any highway has to be approved by that manual. And Pete will certainly back me up on that. But any sign that is considered for town information, speed, whatever, has to be approved by the municipal handbook related to that topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
But they ignore the signs.
They do.
They ignore the signs, whether they're flashing to tell you what your speed limit is, or whether it's painted on the road. They ignore it. Every day I cross this road to try and get my mail. They ignore it.
I think it is also important to remember, I think Pete's trying to do what he can do right now.
Yeah.
On the 25-mile-an-hour signs or zones. There's a study going on, and I know everybody sort of groans because it takes time. But there is a corridor study with focused scoping on the east and the west end of the entirety of Cochran Road to look at traffic calming in that 45-mile-an-hour section as well as the 25-mile-an-hour section. So while we can't put a speed bump or speed table in the 45-mile-an-hour section, I think there's going to be some recommendations in this study of things that we can do.
That study through the CCRPC?
It is, yeah. It's a CCRPC study with one of the engineers that they've hired.
Yeah, where
Go-
Pete is planting those seems to be a really good spot for all three of them.
Go ahead, Andrew. I see you have your hands raised.
Yes, I do. I got a question. Listen, if you put in all of these speed bumps, what is the police department are gonna do? Because I thought the police department was supposed to patrol and arrest people. But if you
those-
put in the speed bumps and everybody's following here, the speed unlimited, they don't have anything to do.
Oh, they'll still patrol out there.
It is a double. It's a double a solution there to the problem. You either put in the speed bumps and do not hire the police, or you hire the police and you do not put in the speed bumps.
The police
Thank
are
you.
not here 24/7.
Thank
I've
you, Ed.
offered my driveway, but they're not there 24/7. The speed bumps are.
Denise?
Denise Barnard, I think it's a little unfair that the study is going on Cochran Road right now. And I say that because I've lived here all my life on that road, or, adjacent to the road. We are seeing so much more traffic on Cochran Road because no one wants to go Route 2 because we've had 3 years of construction. So until that bridge is done, I don't think we're getting a fair look at what's really happening on Cochran Road, because everyone who travels the route knows don't go Route 2. I mean, have you seen a decrease?
Anecdotally, I come from Huntington every day,
Yeah,
and instead of going through town, I go down Cochran Road and go the other way.
exactly, because
So-
I don't want to be stopped and waiting,
Yeah.
at that, there's probably 10 cars in the morning when I used to go that way. I now go down Cochran Road just because I don't want to get stopped waiting for the bridge. So I think it's really unfair that a study is going on now, and I might have rose-colored glasses, but it's gonna get better.
Jay?
May I just say,
Hold on.
Hang on. I'll let you go after Jay.
Denise, I started doing long distance walking in 2008. I've been diving into ditches the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's not demonstrably worse now than it's ever been, in my opinion. People are still gunning for me.
Speeders are still gonna
The
speed.
speeders are still gonna speed. It's not gotten worse because of Route 2.
Well, I'd say more cars, but the problem.
But even if one of every 100 drivers is a total jackass, there's still enough of them out there.
yeah,
And hopefully the speed bumps will slow them down enough to realize that if they keep hitting those roads at 90 miles an hour, they're gonna tear the heck out of their cars or go airborne into the river.
Okay, Judy, one more time, but then we have to move on because I need a motion on this. Go ahead.
and thank you, Jay, because I will tell you that when Jonesville Estates and Stone Fence was all, when I first moved here, was all just woods with deer. I could stand out in the middle of the road and talk for 2 hours to my friends. When they built those housing developments up there, that's when the traffic started on Cochran Road.
Go ahead.
So that was a nice picture of the east end. Do we get a picture of the west end?
Yes.
Okay, that's coming.
Yeah, so those are in the same location that they were in last year, but what we're gonna do is turn those into the permanent pavement style, because as Pete mentioned earlier, once you put in the temporary ones, when you pull them out, they are so badly damaged.
Yeah.
So this is the location that's closer up to the Round Church Road. And that's the same spot that it was last year. And then we also have the one that's closer down towards the cemetery. So essentially at sort of the entry points of the 25-mile-an-hour zone.
Was there ever a consideration of putting a third one between those two? Because people, I know from experience last year, they speed way up in between the two speed bumps.
On the
On the
western
25.
end.
Yeah. I don't know, Pete, I don't think you or I have really looked into a third bump in that area. We spent some time looking at the eastern end and kind of figured the western end. We were gonna continue with what we had already
I
started.
find we need one. We know how to put them in.
Yeah, I think Pete might have some stuff to add here too.
It is, you know, the western end is a much shorter distance of 25, the 25 zone. There are no side roads. And the line of sight is much better because you have a 90-degree corner by the Bombardier Farm. You have a rise over the Huntington River Bridge. You have a blind corner by Dugway Road. You have another hill where the 25 and 45 zone meet. So you have Duxbury Road. You have so much more on the eastern end for site issues versus the western end. Listen, I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm just common sense person, but yeah, people are, if they want to speed between the speed humps, they're going to do it. If you give them 500 feet between them and they want to gun their car, they're going to go. But if they can see 1,000 feet, is it really necessary to put a third one in?
Well, there is a
I
strong
guess
corner there. There is a pretty sharp corner where
it's
Mr.
got reasonable sight, but well, I'm not going to say yes or no. It's going to be a select board decision. It's going to be a fair amount of work for the highway to do this, but this way here, we put it in once and it's year round. We're going to be able to plow over these things. It's going to be similar to like the Jericho Country Store. It'll be like that, but it won't be as extreme. They're going to be 3 inches high. I actually attached the actual MUTCD spec. They're 12 feet wide. They're 3 inches high in the middle. They're concaved. There's a whole specification on it. I think Josh, there it is right there. If you look to the left, there's a profile, a road profile, three inches in the center of the road. Yeah, Josh is spinning it around, but anyways, there you go. Section A-A. So that's, you know, as you go left to right, that's going to be the road. So that there's going to be, they have to be a certain specification because you don't need to take the undercarriage of a vehicle out, but they need to be able to drive over at a reasonable speed. So that'll reduce the speed limit down to probably 10 miles an hour or less going over these things, where a speed bump almost brings you down to 5 miles an hour. It gives you an abrupt shock like we had on the rubber mats we had last year. But these we can actually run plows over them. It's not going to affect the maintenance of the road, which is that's why I'm actually leaning to go this way. I put these in once and we'll get some longevity out of them.
Thanks, Pete. Are we ready for a motion? Line 300.
Line 300.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we have 5 pavement speed tables installed in Cochran Road at the locations presented by the road foreman.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have a second?
This is Jay, second.
Thank you, Jay. Motion made by Lisa Miller, seconded by Jay Fur to have 5 pavement speed tables installed on Cochran Road and the locations presented by Highway Road Foreman Pete Goslin. Any further discussion, Lisa?
One question, Pete, who designs those? Do you get a design or you guys kind of do it yourselves or?
No, that design is actually, like Mary said, that's off the manual uniform traffic control devices. That's a national standard that is designed for speed tables. That's not just something we came up with. That's this is from Delaware. It's a typical, but it comes off the MUTCD, and the signs and everything all have to follow that. See at the bottom right there, all signing and striping shall conform to the latest edition of the MUTCD. So this is in conformance with the standards. The placement that I chose on the western end is 200 feet or more from each intersection, which is also part of the MUTCD standard. So, I mean, we can engineer it. We can spend a lot more money and time on it. It's our road. It's your call, I guess.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Jay, I.
And David, aye. Pete, thank you for bringing this to us, and neighbors and residents of Cochran Road, thank you for your continued patience, and hopefully we finally have a workable solution. Thank you.
When will this be done?
Asphalt plants don't even open till May, so my goal is to get this done by July at the latest. Probably gonna be end of May, June, sometime in that time frame.
That's great. By the way, when you had those temporary ones down at the other end, the round church end, I saw pickup trucks flying over them. Like
We
evil
almost got hit
people.
putting them in.
Yeah.
I mean, it was dangerous just putting them in, so, yeah, it's, the roads are busy. The roads are busy.
Well, thank you, everyone. It is time to move on. So next on our agenda is consideration of approving a vendor for line striping.
So we went out and got 3 bids for line striping. We did a sealed bid process. We asked for yellow lines on East Hill and West White Hill, which we do every year. We also asked for fog lines on Huntington Road, Cochran Road, Hinesburg Road, East Hill, and West White, which would be new this year. We've never done fog lines in the past. The bid that came in the best was L&D. And we also sort of broke this up into a couple of different work phases because we've gonna have some paving on Huntington Road. So we broke that piece out to have them come back and do that in the fall, knowing that we don't want to do that right in the spring and have them come back. So for the white fog lines, it's $13,153.44 for the spring work. The double yellow lines is $2,661.12 for a total of $15,814.56 for the work in the spring. For the work on Huntington Road in October, it's an additional $5,464.80. So all told for the line striping is $21,279.36. This does get a little complicated when we start to look at the budget. So the FY24 budget, which is what we're currently in, and we have to spend until the end of June, really only had a budget right now for the 2 double yellow lines, which would be on East Hill and West White. So that's about $2,600. The $13,000 for the fog lines that we would try to do here in the spring are not currently in the budget. So the board has a couple of options. You can either overspend that line. It will be made up by other savings, specifically on salt and gravel in the highway budget for this year. Keeping in mind that we had a lot of expenses for the flood, but those will eventually mostly be reimbursed. And then as we get into the fog lines in October, that'll be the FY25 budget. And in FY25 budget, we have a budget for fog lines, but not doing Huntington Road twice. So we'd be a couple of $1,000s over that budget in FY25 if we do those in October. And then we have to come back and do them after the winter, is why we do them twice in that budget. But I think we're about, what's the exact number? We'd be estimated to be about $1,344 over budget, which in the grand scheme of the highway budget is not a tremendous amount over to get some fog lines down. So I gave the board 3 different options to overspend the current budget on this line item, to use ARPA. Oh, you could also use ARPA funds for the FY24 portion, or use ARPA funds for the unbudgeted amount in 24 and 25, because this would fall into ARPA. And as we saw earlier, there's about $90,000 in ARPA that has not yet been earmarked by the board.
So to your point, sorry,
Yeah, I'm done.
Mr. Chairman, the third motion to use ARPA funds for the unbudgeted amount in 24 and 25, just to reiterate what Josh said, we have money in the budget for fiscal year 25. We're saying, even though we budgeted that, use the ARPA funds anyway, because we've got them.
Good.
Okay. Now, I was saying earlier, it's nice to have that $89,000 cushion if something else should come up. On the other hand, the ARPA survey talked a lot about Cochran Road safety. I think a very good case could be made for using ARPA for this. So I could go overspend, or I could go ARPA. I'm ambivalent.
So hang on to that for a second. I just have a question. Have we used L&D before?
Believe so, but I'll kick that to Pete.
Pete, any issues with L&D doing the striping?
No, actually, that's the preferred company. They're the only Vermont local company that does line
Okay.
striping. All the other bids I had to find out of state.
Okay.
That's why
Thanks.
it's the first time I've ever had to do this. Yep.
Okay.
So I will defer to the opinion of the others. Do we want to overspend the line item since we've got the money, since we used very little salt this year?
Yes.
Or do we want to take ARPA money?
I think we still have more freedom with that, if we can leave it, but, I'm not fussy about how we do it.
Well, do you want to move?
I guess I'm indifferent. I mean, I prefer to not knowingly overspend if there's another option, but, yeah, indifferent.
Bard, thoughts?
You know, I don't have very strong feelings, but I do note, you know, what is it, 89,000 and change that's kind of sitting there for ARPA funds. There's ups and downs in anything. And part of me is inclined to, as the clock keeps ticking, to take the ARPA money, commit it and spend it. And realizing we have a plan afoot to give ourselves some breathing room, I'm sort of inclined to do that, given that the budget will play itself out year to year. And we may have to look at line striping in future budgets anyway, but you know, I'm inclined to support the third option, using ARPA at this point, but I could be convinced otherwise.
Are we ready for a motion?
I move to enter into an agreement with L&D Safety Marking Corporation for line striping in an amount not to exceed $21,279.36, with $18,618.24 paid with ARPA funds.
This is Jay. I'll second that.
Motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by Jay Furr to enter into an agreement with L&D Safety Marking Corporation for line striping in an amount not to exceed $21,279.36, with $18,618.24 paid for with ARPA funds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, aye.
Lisa, aye. Jay, aye.
And David, aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Next,
Looking forward to those lines.
sticking with the road theme, we have a consideration of approving a vendor for.
So you got a hand up, I just noticed.
Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
I just wanted to, this is just a comment. I appreciate the, fog lines being put on the roads and think that will be helpful as a traffic calming measure. I want to be careful about not describing it as a bike lane, because if drivers think that that's a bike lane, they will drive right up to the line when there's a bike or pedestrian there. And that's going to be really, really dangerous because our roads are not wide enough to have bike lanes on them as is. So
Good point.
I want to just make sure, as far as our language goes, that they are never talked about as bike lanes.
Right. The term protected shoulder is a little more accurate.
It doesn't even protect. I mean, there's not a shoulder in a lot of places.
Well,
So I would just call them fog lines. Traffic calming measure.
That's
Okay.
Thank you. Make me feel better.
Thank you.
The cars are not driving down there thinking that they can be right there. All right, thanks. I really
Thank you.
appreciate getting them.
Thank you. So next is consideration of approving a vendor for paving. Pete, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, I have two purchase orders in front of you. The first one was for fiscal year 24, which was last summer, obviously given the weather conditions and the vendor not being able to do the paving because they were pulled every which direction like we were. They did not meet their deadline and they were fine with just rebidding the whole paving bid. So what I did is I combined the fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25's numbers to get the best unit price for the town. And we saved almost $6 per ton by doing this over last year's numbers. So it really, I think it really paid off. We were like 90 or $89 last year, or 83. So by combining the pot of money, and splitting it into 2 fiscal years, we're gonna get an extra half a mile, 3/4 of a mile paving done out of this. So it's huge. So the first purchase order is for fiscal year 24, which is what we're in currently.
Right.
There's 325 sitting in that budget right now. It's for Pike Industries based on the low bid. And the roads to finish these are the roads we were supposed to do last year. The rest of Thompson Road, the Hillview Road lower part, it's 4/10 of a mile. And then picking up the Huntington Road where we left off, but now we got to back it up because we had that massive washout. So we're going to start just down that washout, cut a new joint, and work up the hill until it runs out, until we run out of that 325, which will probably get us up somewhere up to Grandview Road or somewhere up on the flats. That's the fiscal year 24. Then the next purchase order is fiscal year 25, which this is all in the paving plan. It's Southview Drive from one end to the other. We've got 2 culverts that need to be replaced, so that's the other reason why this got pushed into the fiscal year 25 plan versus fiscal year 24. This was all part of that work plan where I told you I had all these variables I had to adjust around because we just couldn't do this work last year. Millette Street, we're just going to do from Route 2 up to the Tilden Avenue path. The road has a negative pitch in it, and it's coming apart. Fairly inexpensive. It's like $18,000 to do that. And if we don't pave it, we're going to lose that road. It's falling apart really bad. And then the remainder of that funds will continue on Huntington Road. After that's done, then like Josh says, he's going to come back in the fall and put the fog lines on that new portion of Huntington Road that got paved.
Okay.
I
Any
attached
questions or
a
comments?
bid tab. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I had a bid tab there with the 6 bidders that we always use. Jay Hutchins has just got a full schedule. They just cannot do it. ECI did not submit a bid. And then, there's the other 3, anywhere from 83 to 106. So
Yeah.
Sounds good. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve purchase order 4793 to Pike Industries for fiscal year 24 paving in an amount not to exceed $325,000.
I will second.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Lisa. So motion made by Jay, seconded by Lisa. It's a motion to approve purchase order 4793 to Pike Industries for fiscal year 24 paving in an amount not to exceed $325,000. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I. Jay, I.
And David, I. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve purchase order 4794 to Pike Industries for fiscal year 25 paving in an amount not to exceed $295,000.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jay. Motion made by Jay first, seconded by Lisa Miller to approve purchase order 4794 to Pike Industries for fiscal year 25 paving in an amount not to exceed $295,000. Calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Jay, I.
And David, I. Motion carries. Thank you. Are we ready to move on? Looks like we are. So next is an update on the stormwater project on Tilden Avenue.
I'll give a quick update. If Pete has more to add, he can do that. So Pete's been working Pete's been working with engineer Tyler Billingsley to address this pipe. This is a 100-year-old stormwater pipe. It's on private property, but it's pretty clearly a town pipe, and we've done work on this pipe in other sections of the village in the past. So Pete, I think, found a good path with the engineer, Tyler. He's working on plans for that. If Pete were to do this work himself with his staff, he probably want to get to it till later this summer or early fall, with an effort to sort of expedite this because the problem is worsening and threatening the house every time that it floods. We're going to put this out to bid for construction and then come back to the select board with that bid. And we do have some money left over in the stormwater budget because this year we're not going to get to some planned stuff up on Route 2 until after July 1st. So we can still use the FY24 stormwater budget.
Yeah, Josh, just refresh our memories. Where does this pipe start and where does it terminate?
It gets at 102 Tilden Ave. It starts up behind there and then it comes behind the Witters' house. But right now it comes down to the back of their house, makes a left-hand turn, then makes a right-hand turn around their house, and connects into the stormwater system. We're gonna straighten that so that it kind of comes straight down the driveway and connects in to the stormwater system there, but there's a good amount of things to work around underground, which will mean to have it engineered. And with the amount of work on the highway foreman's plate right now, it makes sense to outsource this.
Does it take water off of Jericho Road? Also?
Sort of. Part of that kind of
yeah.
runs down from there. Yeah, Pete could probably give a better description.
There used to be a little.
It starts from, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
It starts from Browns Court area, kind of from Browns Court and Jericho Road. There's a ravine right there. There's also a crossing right there. It initiates in that area. Plus it takes drainage from a few houses on the backside of Browns Court. That ravine must have a bunch of springs in it too, because it's very wet. There's a lot of history, but it's an old combined storm sewer system. And way back, I'm going to go back 15 years ago, when we had Green Mountain Engineering scope all these pipes, because we're trying to separate the stormwater and sewer. We found that that actual pipe had combined sewer in it. So the town did a massive, we're still paying for this bond, the Tilden Avenue or Millette Street stormwater bond, which we're gonna probably pay for another 15 years. That ran a whole new stormwater pipe all the way up Millette Street and up Tilden Avenue to 102 Tilden and tied into this pipe to separate the sewer and stormwater. And the town did get an easement on the property at 102 to go onto the property about 30 feet and tie into that clay pipe. But what's happened over the years, the storms become more, extreme, and the 12-inch clay pipe cannot take the flows anymore. It jumps over the pipe, comes down, and it directly goes right into their home. And it's flooded their house out, I think, at least 4 or 5 times now. And it takes their driveway out, and then it goes all the way down Baker Street. So the issue we had was there's a future water line replacement project on Tilden Avenue, right in the same location this stormwater pipe needs to go into. So we had to do test pitting to make sure that the stormwater pipe and the water main upgrade would all fit on that side of the street. We just did this last week, and we went down 42 inches and we needed 39, I think, and we were clear. There's a gas line and a water service, but we were clear. So it will fit. Tyler's going to work on the design, come up with all the materials. What I'd like to do is we purchase the pipe and the structures, and then that way there, when we bid this thing out, it's just going to be, a contractor can just come in and do this project, because we're going to probably have 30 days just waiting to get these materials together. The structure's got to be built a certain way, got to have certain angles on the cores, on the boots and stuff. So if you can approve this tonight, this would be great. We can get moving forward on this. I'd love to have this done by July 1, do it with the fiscal year 24 money. There's about $80,000 sitting in that stormwater account right now, because we're not going to do the concrete sidewalks until July. We pushed that into July because, well, again, we got pushed out of last year. So that money's sitting there unexpended. So this is a really good project to contract. It would benefit the homeowner, and it'll benefit the highway department especially. It's going to be a little bit expensive, but because we have the available funds, I think it's money well spent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think we need an actual motion tonight, more so just general consensus that this is the direction we're going. When we get bids, we'll come back to the board for that approval of the bid, because I'm sure it'll be over $15,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is clearly a need.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pete.
Good.
Are we ready to talk about an access permit?
I'm always ready to talk about access permits.
So this is for an access permit for 2 lots on Old Country Lane that were created in a subdivision. Pete is requiring that the access for the northern lot be moved 20 feet to the south to obtain the proper site distance. And Pete has approved the access permit for the southern lot as presented. Access permits are included in the packet. Any questions before I ask for a motion? Asking for a motion.
Almost so moved.
Line 403.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve access permit ROW 2024-02 with amendment by road foreman Pete Gosselin, and access permit ROW 2024-03 as presented for access to 2 new lots on Old Country Lane.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Adam, second.
Thank you, Adam. So motion made by Jay, seconded by Adam is a motion to approve access permit ROW 2024-02 with an amendment by road foreman Pete Goslin and access permit ROW 2024-03 as presented for access to 2 new lots on Old Country Lane. Any questions or comments before calling for a vote? Hearing none, seeing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Jay, aye.
And David, I. Next is consideration of approval of submitting a grant application for the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. This is a grant program which benefits private homeowners whose property is threatened by quickly eroding river and stream banks. In Richmond, say it ain't so. The Winooski River is threatening the property at 2941 Dugway Road and has been approved for this program. The funds are required to flow through the town, but all matching funds are the responsibility of the homeowner. So the town, as the municipality, has to be the financial person doing this, but we get reimbursed. Was this related to the Halloween flood?
No, this one came to our attention after the July flood.
Okay.
You might remember this program. We initially became aware of it as we looked at the solutions for the swale and Esplanade.
Yep.
And in that, there was 4 or 5 other properties that we thought would be a good candidate. And on initial review last summer, the representative from the program said that none of the properties met the criteria. But in the meantime, 2941 Dugway Road reached back out to say, the problem is getting worse. So the representative went out, looked at it, and said, yeah, that's getting closer to your house, and got it approved after the fact. And now we just need an agreement to apply for that grant.
This isn't the Winooski River, this is the Huntington River.
No, it's the, I think it's
If
the
you look at
Winooski-
2941, it's nowhere near the Winooski River.
Yeah, it should be the Huntington River.
It is the Huntington River.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too.
That's 2.
Yeah, that's two typos in the memo.
Okay,
Yes,
I was-
no, you're right.
Correctly spelled,
It's not correctly spelled. You're
You get
correct.
points for spelling.
No, it's absolutely the Huntington River. Yes.
But it
you're right.
flows into the Winooski River.
But otherwise, I mean,
It could back up that far, I suppose.
Well,
it's really straightforward.
It's
It's
really
main water.
Huntington River.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move to apply for an emergency watershed protection grant for 2941 Dugway Road with all matching funds to be paid by the homeowner and to appoint town manager Josh Sonderson as grant manager and duly authorized representative.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Lisa. So the motion is to apply for an emergency watershed protection grant for 2941 Dugway Road with all matching funds to be paid by the homeowner and to appoint town manager Josh Arneson as the grant manager and duly authorized representative. Jay, you made the motion, Lisa seconded, right? Okay. Any further discussion before calling the motion to a vote? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Jay, aye.
And David, I. Next on our agenda is consideration of applying for a Swift Current grant on behalf of Richmond property owners.
You want me to walk through this one?
Yeah, if you could.
Yeah, so these get a little complicated. The board did make a motion back after the flood to support these types of grants for home elevations and buyouts. And as I've been learning, as I've been getting more involved, there's a few different funding pots that they're pulling from. So one is the Swift Current program. And it's open for elevations and buyouts. The deadline, however, is April 29th. I think it's a little bit more guaranteed than some of the other money, but the high hurdle here is that you have to have an engineering study put together for the house. So some of the homes are maybe able to get that done in the next 2 weeks, but I wanted to have authorization to apply for the homes that are eligible for that, so that in the event we can get the applications in by the end of next week, we can do that with select board authority. The other side of this is any property that misses that deadline, there's still a June 21st deadline for another funding source that they can apply for elevations and for buyouts. And actually the bar to entry on that one for an elevation is lower because you don't need as completed an engineering study for that application. So that one's going to be a little bit easier, I think. But I'm going to work with homeowners who are eligible to see what we can do over the next couple of weeks. So the motion is to authorize that, and then we'll see what we can do in the next 2 weeks.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the applying for Swift Current grants for home elevation or property buyouts for the following properties if applications can be submitted by the April 29th, 2024 deadline. 251 Bridge Street, 65 Esplanade Street, 84 Esplanade Street, 54 Jones Mill Road, 99 Esplanade Street, 2666 Cochran Road, and 36 Jones Mill Road, and to appoint Town Manager Josh Arneson as grant manager and duly authorized representative.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have a second?
Adam, second.
Thank you, Adam. So motion made by Lisa Miller, seconded by Adam Wood, is a motion to approve applying for Swift Current grants for home elevation or property buyouts for the following properties if applications can be submitted by the April 29th, 2024 deadline. 251 Bridge Street, 65 Esplanade Street, 84 Esplanade Street, 54 Jones Mill Road, 99 Esplanade Street, 2666 Cochran Road, and 36 Jones Mill Road, and to appoint Town Manager Josh Arneson as grant manager and duly authorized representative. Yes.
Mary, how close is 266 Cochran Road? Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah. mobile home.
Oh, okay. Where's Jones Mill Road?
Down past the Jonesville Bridge. Or,
Oh, yep,
That's
yep.
back in
it's
there.
back where the original mill that gave Jonesville.
Across from the
its name.
motorcycle shop, kind of
Yeah.
next to the Denny's place.
They flood.
Yeah.
Flooded bad in
That's
July.
pressure too, right? Mhm.
Yeah, they actually probably flood more often than
Yeah, well, they get
downtown by sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they flood, we don't even know they're flooding.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
J.I.
And David, I. Motion passes. Another typo there. You forgot the D.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Mary.
I'm out, but I got 3 outs an inning.
Oh, it's not that easy.
27 a game, so I'm still ahead of it.
So we did the update on the conservation easement. So next is consideration of approving an extension to the agreement with the Hinesburg Police Department for police services.
Do you want to do minutes, warrants, purchase orders first, then we get to that?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Well, real quick, Justin, it says we can go into executive session, but unless there's concern, this would be pretty much a housekeeping item. Does anybody particularly want to go into executive session over this?
Do we ever want to go into executive?
I just,
I mean,
do you
just
think,
Sometimes there's questions.
There's nothing confidential about it.
I'm just thinking unless people want to, we
Dylan,
could
you should
just,
go into executive session?
I mean, unless you have any specific questions, in which case I'd say let's go in, we can answer those questions, but really it's what it says. The agreement, I think its last day is this Wednesday, so we'd like to.
Oh, we have plenty of time.
Like to vote to extend that. And it's going to be going to the Hinesburg Selectboard on Wednesday as well for their consideration.
well, unless Bard feels otherwise, I think we could just approve it.
I'm looking at him, he doesn't feel otherwise.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, I move to approve the agreement which extends the term of the intermunicipal police agreement between the town of Hinesburg and the town of Richmond to June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Lisa. Now, quick question. Is there an out clause in that agreement if we decide?
Yep.
Okay.
Either party can say we're done and within
Was
a
it
couple
30
weeks
days?
notice. I forget if it's 30 days or 15 days.
But there's an out.
There is an out for either party, either town to say, we don't like this anymore.
Okay, I'm sorry. Who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So the motion that Jay moved and Lisa seconded is to approve the agreement which extends the term of the intermunicipal police agreement between the town of Hinesburg and the town of Richmond to June 30th, 2025. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
J.I.
And David, I. Motion carries. Okay.
We might be out of here by 9:30, who knows?
Hey, David.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's plausible to shoehorn a brief update on our hiring of police, that we're on this police issue topic here.
Sure.
Like 30 seconds.
Sure. So we do have a conditional offer back from one applicant, which allows us to proceed to the final stages of the background check, which is checking with our current agency. So assuming that goes well, we should have a hire here fairly shortly. We had a conditional offer out to another applicant. Haven't heard back from that applicant yet, so they may be reconsidering. And I think we've got one or two more yet to interview. But I'm encouraged we've got at least one sort of in the hopper, so to speak.
I think you
Folks.
guys will be pleased if he takes the job. He's a
Yeah.
very good candidate.
Right.
First job is stationed in Cochran Road with a radar gun. Right time.
Okay. Thank you for adding that, Bart. That's good news. Okay, moving on to approval of minutes, warrants, and purchase orders. So am I correct? We just have the one purchase order to still approve, 4893?
Yep. Right.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes from April 1st, 2024 as presented.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Was that March 24th?
April 1st.
April 1st.
Oh, okay.
When
No,
I was
Joe?
Bermuda.
Okay. I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Jay, seconded by Lisa Miller to approve the minutes of April 1st. Did anybody notice any edits that needed to be made with those draft minutes, or are they good?
Well, to be
approve
honest,
as
there
is?
was one thing, I hate to do this, but there was one thing where I'm like, I said, what? Let me pull it up. Oh, boy, it's here. Where? Sorry, I'm challenged with my computer for a second.
You need tech help?
No,
Still got 5 minutes.
voice my own petard there. All right, I should have made a note of this earlier, but I'm getting there.
Want me to do the warrants while you're pulling that up?
If you like, you know.
Okay. Now can I have a motion to approve the warrants as presented?
Oh, I found it.
Never mind.
Yep. Line 243 in the minutes. If you want to share that.
Oh, yeah, I should have been doing that while you were doing that. See, so
We were doing so well on time.
First one, 2, 3.
First stated that there are a lot of people who don't make much money to help understand why the vote went down.
I know I speak gibberish a lot, but I'm not even sure what that means. I think what I was trying to say was there are a lot of people who don't make much money. And that helps understand why the vote went down.
Okay, we can look at
I
that.
see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They're feeling a hand in their pocket.
right. As it was, I mean, maybe it says that already to me. I'm just like, it seems like a run-on sentence that's not very clear.
Okay. We'll take a look.
That's the only thing I found. Okay, so did we have a motion? Did I move to accept them?
Now you said you had an issue with it.
Okay, so we don't have a motion. Okay, great. So
Take the minutes.
you've already accepted the amendment. So, Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the minutes as updated.
Okay,
Adam, second?
thank you, Adam. So motion made by Jay first, seconded by Adam Wood to adopt the minutes as corrected, lines 243 through 245. Any further edits? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Art, aye. Adam, aye.
Lisa, aye.
Jay,
And David, I. That motion passes. The minutes have been approved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so next we have purchase order 4893.
and the amount of. Right. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve purchase order 49.3 to the town of Hinesburg. In an amount not to exceed $29,300 for police services in February of 2024.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second.
Thank you, Lisa. Motion made by Jay to approve purchase order 4893 to the Hinesburg Police, well, to the town of Hinesburg for police services for February of 2024 in an amount not to exceed 29,300. Calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Jay, aye.
And David, I. Okay, now we can do the warrants. Anybody find any issues with the warrants, or are they ready to approve
I
as
did not
presented?
see-
Okay, so I guess we're ready for a motion to approve the warrants as presented.
Make a motion that we approve the warrants as presented.
Thank you, Adam. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lisa. So motion made by Adam Wood to approve the warrants as presented, seconded by Lisa Miller. Calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Jay, aye.
And David, I. Motion carries. The warrants are approved. Items for the next agenda. So it sounds like the draft
ARPA. Funding.
We'll have updated ARPA funding. We'll have a reminder, the Recreation Summit, which we'll call the Volunteers Green Summit. We'll have the actual public feedback meeting for Thompson Road, Huntington Road, Bridge Street, and Cochran Road intersection. We'll have a discussion about a certificate of deposit. We had one that recently came due, so consideration of doing another one. We'll have a review of the third quarter FY24 financials, and we'll have a rather large item, the public hearing on the zoning amendments, which could be 45 minutes or more in its own right.
How big is the CD?
That's
all right.
No, I think the one that just came due was one of the 500,000 ones. I think we still have $1 million one that's a couple months out. And Connie and Jim Feinstein, the treasurer, are looking at that to see what do they recommend for another CD.
Were we going to have draft changes to the
Yeah, in the ordinance, I'll take a look at,
the park and the
park and
traffic
yep,
ordinance for
we'll take a look
You
at that.
mentioned the
Round trip.
one of Thompson Bridge, the
the public hearing on the
public hearing. on
intersection that
Yeah, we'll get the public feedback on that one. Yep.
outside of that.
I'm sure there'll be 17 more things. We got a 3-week gap. I mean, that's prime time to have a large meeting. But yeah, the zoning amendments will take, I think, a good amount of time.
Yeah.
But there'll be a few other things, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, I moved with-
I may
Go
have
ahead.
one update. I've communicated briefly through the Byzantine corporate structure of the railroad about
Oh,
the
yes.
railroad ties. And I actually got a response, which basically says, we will look into this and get back to you. So I was going to give them another week or two and then follow up with them again, so that I may have an update by our next meeting, at least what they're saying.
What is that in reference to?
The railroad ties that
Oh,
we've done
railroad ties,
right of way
right.
next to the railroad. After the 1927 flood, New England or the Central Vermont Railway was bankrupt, so they were absorbed and rebuilt by Canadian National, so it was a subsidiary of Canadian National. Canadian National sold it in 1995 to Railtex, and it became the New England Central Railroad. And then they sold it to Genesee and Wyoming. So Genesee and Wyoming is the holding company now.
And there's also Connecticut Southern Railroad that appears in all this. So there's like 3 or 4 different corporate identities that remain obscure to me, but at least they responded to email.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Adam, second.
You want to do, all right.
Calling the motion to a vote. This is a motion for adjournment at 9:32 p.m.
Yay. Very good. Good job. Yeah, got a lot done.
We did.
A lot.
Well done, Bard, aye.
Adam, I.
Oh, Lisa, I.
Jay, aye.
I guess.
And David, I, we're adjourned.
And now the fun part, so what we all come for.
Yeah.